Welcome back to another episode of Success in Mind. Today's episode is a special one because Success in Mind just turned 10. That's a whole decade of conversations, of growth, mindset shifts, and real talk with you, my incredible audience of entrepreneurs, creators, and change makers. 10 years ago, I started this podcast with one goal in mind. I just needed a creative outlet. I had no intention of it growing. I mean, if you asked me back then, I probably would have said I would think it'd be really cool to grow an audience, but I really didn't think anyone would listen. And that's why I was able to launch it so quickly, because I thought no one's going to listen to this thing. This was literally just for me to share what I was going through, my journey in personal development. And I thought maybe the odd person might listen and maybe it'll help someone somewhere. But I had zero expectations. And then as the show evolved, my intention with it changed. I wanted to start exploring success strategies and the mindset behind the strategy, the energy behind the effort, the person behind the business. And over the years, I have spoken to leaders, to other coaches, to business owners, and some of the most transformational moments have come not just from them, but from you. The emails, the DMs, the reflections you shared with me about how an episode landed, or maybe something you're doing differently, or how you've shifted your thinking because of something you heard on this show, or even how it's helped you through a tough time. So thank you. Truly, truly thank you. So today, in honor of this 10-year milestone, I want to share something personal. The real truth about staying motivated when you've been doing something for a long, long time. And then I'm going to share with you some of my favorite episodes, favorite moments, and favorite guest moments. So stay tuned. Okay, now here is what I have learned from recording this podcast for 10 years. Motivation changes over time. In the beginning, it's all excitement and possibility. You're super fired up. You're in motion. You're doing stuff. You're making it happen. But as time goes on, even when things are going well, you'll have moments when it feels different. Not worse, just different. You might start asking deeper questions like, am I still aligned with why I started? What does success look like for me right now? What do I actually want to create next? And the biggest question of all, do I want to still do this? Those are powerful questions to ask. But they're signs of growth, not confusion. This is where I have found myself recently. With the podcast, with my business, I've found myself reflecting, recalibrating, and reconnecting with the purpose behind the work that I do. So let me share with you 3 things that have helped me to stay motivated, not just over the 10 years of podcasting, but through building a business, leading clients, and continuing to evolve. So number 1, motivation isn't constant. It is cyclical. You are not going to feel lit up every day. And I think that's a big myth that many entrepreneurs come into business thinking, is that every day is going to be wonderful and we're always going to love this. Maybe you've heard that old saying, and I don't know who said it first, but that old saying of, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. Well, I call bullshit on that, because I say if you love what you do, you're probably going to work a lot harder than you would otherwise. And you're going to put in more hours. And it's going to cost you a lot more in sweat and tears than if you didn't love what you do. So I don't buy into that. I think if you love what you do, you are going to work far more than you would otherwise. And you're not going to be excited about it every day. There's going to be days where you have to slog through to make it happen. And that's okay. The key is to not make it mean that something is wrong. Rest is part of the process, and often clarity follows stillness. I work with so many business owners every day who tell me they haven't taken a vacation in years. They haven't even taken time off in years or months, or they take a day here or there, but otherwise they're working, or they boast about working while they're supposed to be on vacation. And if that is you, if I am speaking to you right now, you need to know that you are hurting your creativity. You are harming your decision making process. You are blocking your own clarity in your business. Visionaries need space and time to vision. So that's one. Motivation, it's not constant, it's cyclical. Two, purpose evolves. What lit you up 5 years ago might not be what's going to light you up today. And that doesn't mean you've outgrown your mission. It means that your mission is maturing. So let it evolve with you. At the core of the work that I do, I have the same mission and purpose, but it's evolved over time. As I mentioned in the intro, the mission with this podcast at the very beginning was just to have a creative outlet for me. In fact, let's rewind a little bit, and I'm going to take you back 10 years to where I was in life. 10 years ago, I was still working as a personal trainer and sports nutritionist. I loved what I did, but I was incredibly burnt out. And I'm not just talking tired or I lost my spark, my motivation. No, I mean real burnout, physical burnout, to the point where my adrenal system was no longer working the way it should be. My cortisol levels were incredibly low. And my doctor said to me one day, Teri, you can't keep doing what you're doing. You need to stop now, or you'll end up in the hospital. Now, what got me there was that I loved what I did so much. It was literally killing me. I was working 12, sometimes 14-hour days, and then coming home and working on my business and my off hours, my quote unquote off hours, but I was never actually turning off. I was available to my clients 24/7. If they sent me a text, if they messaged me at any time of the day, I would respond to them immediately. Whether I was out for dinner with my husband or doing my own workout, walking my dogs, going to bed, it didn't matter. I would answer. So I was constantly on, constantly working. And I did that 6 days a week, sometimes seven. Sometimes I would take clients on a Sunday because I felt like if I turned the business down, my client would go away or they'd get upset with me. And I was in such a state of being a people pleaser. I wanted to make everyone happy. Plus, I loved what I did, so I could justify it by saying, well, I love what I do. It doesn't feel like work. I love this. But the cost was big. So, on one hand, I was completely overworking. On the other hand, I was also overtraining and over dieting. I got into fitness competitions because I thought that would be the way to grow my business even more and establish myself in the fitness world was to get into fitness competitions and show an incredibly drastic transformation in my own body. So I was overtraining and over dieting and overworking, but that's not all. I've also had an autoimmune disorder since I was about 10, 11 years old, ulcerative colitis, and I had been ignoring it. Well, let me rephrase that. Not ignoring it because you can't exactly ignore something like that, but I wasn't taking it seriously. I wasn't treating it properly. And I kept going back to my doctor, complaining of symptoms and more issues. And she just kept saying, Teri, you have an autoimmune disorder. You can't work the way you think you can. You need to slow down. And I wasn't listening to her until she told me I had to fully stop. So 10 years ago, I was in this place of losing my business. Not entirely. I could still work a couple days a week for a few hours in each of those days, but it was a huge hit to my income. So I had lost a big part of my income. I'm the kind of person who attaches my self-esteem, my self-worth to the success I see in my business. I'm a Capricorn through and through. And if I'm not climbing the mountain, I feel like I'm useless. Don't worry, it's something I've worked on a lot, but it is a fundamental part of my personality that I always feel the need to achieve and climb to greater heights. I keep it in check now, don't worry. So I lost my identity. I lost my income for the most part. And at the same time, I was losing my father. My father was dying of cancer. And at this time, 10 years ago, he was in the final stages of it. And my dad was my person. He was the only one in my family who I ever felt really got me, and he was my safety net. So while I was losing everything else, I was also losing my safety net. And then I went to this event, multi-speaker event, and the first speaker on the first day was a man named Sam Crawley. He hosts the Every Day is Saturday show, great podcast. And when he spoke, something inside me lit up. This was the thing I was looking for. I needed to have a voice. I wanted to share not only what I was going through, but how I was getting through it, how I was going to find my way out of this hole I found myself in. And to be clear, I was depressed, very depressed. I was in a dark state. But I thought, if I can find my way out and maybe be a guiding light to someone else, that'll help me too. So I started this podcast simply because I needed a creative outlet. I just realized that was a much longer story than I expected it to be. But all of that to say that that's not the same thing that drives me today. So I just wanted a creative outlet before, but what this show has evolved into as I got more clarity on the purpose behind this show and what I wanted to achieve with it, it's been to help business owners like you to master those challenges that come up, how to stay motivated when things aren't going right, how to create success in your business, how to create a business that you absolutely love, that you don't burn out from, like I did. So your purpose is going to evolve. And the third thing that I have learned that has helped me is you don't need to be inspired to take action, but action often brings inspiration. Sometimes the best thing you can do is just take the next small step. Hit the record button, write the outline, make the phone call. The energy catches up, even when you don't feel like doing it. And there will be days where you just don't feel like it. And your ability to show up and do it anyway is going to help find that inspiration and lead you to the next thing. And you never know where it's going to lead you. When I hit that record button 10 years ago, I had no idea what would come of this show. I didn't know that I would reach #1 in just a couple weeks. I didn't know that I would surpass Brendan Burchard a couple months later. I didn't know that I would rank in the top 1% of all podcasts worldwide, which still blows my mind every time I see it. I didn't know that my business would grow. I didn't know that I would get speaking opportunities from this. I had no idea where this would take me, but I took that next little step. So here's something I'd like you to reflect on. And this would be a great one to journal on. The question is, what's something I haven't given myself permission to change, even though I've grown past it? So if you feel like you've been in a rut, that you just keep doing the same things because that's what you've always done, but maybe you're feeling, I don't know, like something's missing. Ask yourself that. What's something I haven't given myself permission to change, even though I've grown past it? And as we move into the next season of this show, I want to hear from you. Now, I say this all the time. I'm always saying, drop me a message, drop me a message. And it's very rare that any of you actually do. But I see the download numbers. I know that you're listening, but I want to hear from you. So as we move into this next season, tell me, what are you wrestling with? What would you love to hear more of? Whether it's mindset shifts or high performance habits or behind the scenes looks at real entrepreneurial success, or maybe you want to hear some failure stories. I don't know. Tell me what you want from this show. How can I best serve you? You can message me on Instagram. That's where I spend the most time on social, or send me an email. Just reach out. I'm opening up more space for your questions, for your wins, and your voice in upcoming episodes. And if you join my Instagram channel, which is Beyond the Podcast, I had to think about that for a second, Success in Mind Beyond the Podcast, when I have a guest on, you can ask some questions. I post in there for almost every guest. To be totally honest, sometimes I forget, but For the most part, I will post in there who's coming on and you can ask your questions. So if you want to ask questions to an expert that I have coming on, you got to be in that channel. That's the only place where you can send your questions. But you can also reach out to me on Instagram if you have feedback for me. What you like, what you don't like. You're not going to hurt my feelings. I want to make this show better for you. Now, I said I'd share some of my favorites with you. So let's do some, I don't know, we're going to call it Teri's top 5, Teri's top 10. I feel like I should do 10 things, but that's a lot of things. Let me see. Let me think about it. Okay. I think I need to open up my podcast to see all the episodes, and then I'll tell you my top 10 episodes. How about that? Okay. Here are the top 10 of my favorite episodes I've recorded. So, number 1, oh man, no, I just realized it's so hard to think back that far because I know I'm going to miss some. And so just keep in mind, I probably have a bias towards what is more recent. So, top 10, one, I've got to say, is my interview with Bob Berg. And these are in no particular order, by the way. These are just as they come to me. My interview with Bob Berg, because he was a guest that I always wanted to have on the show, someone I was so excited to talk to. And I love talking with all the guests we have on, but it was so special to have Bob Berg on the show, the co-author of the Go Giver series. What an amazing, generous, kind man. So that's going to be one. Second one, interviewing Leah Goldstein. And she's such a powerhouse, inspirational woman that, man, she was another dream guest that I had. When I heard Leah speak at a women's summit several years ago, I knew that day, I was like, I've got to have her on my show. But I was so afraid to reach out to her. And then I did. I got the courage and I reached out, and she was also so generous, so kind, so willing to come on the show that it was a really special interview. I've also really enjoyed interviewing many of my friends. Christy Powers, who's been on the show, I think twice now. Her most recent episode with me was ADHD, entrepreneurship, body doubling, and career changes and more with ADHD coach Christy Powers. The first time she was on, we were talking about photography because Christy's career was as a photographer until she found her purpose. I mean, talk about changing your direction and changing your motivation. And so that episode was a lot of fun to talk to Christy about that career change and about what she's up to today. That was a great one. I've also really enjoyed I've had Amanda Carson on the show several times. She's a grief counselor. And it might not seem like grief is an obvious choice for this podcast, but those episodes have been some of the best performing episodes about grief. In fact, my number 1 episode of all time to this day is one of my early episodes. It's all the way back from 2015, and it is titled Grief. And it was about losing my father, but a reflection on it. That episode has also produced the greatest listener response in terms of emails, messages, and from people who've shared with me how that episode impacted them. So thank you for those, by the way. I don't know what number I'm on. I have completely lost track, but we're just going to plow through and keep going. I've also really enjoyed having Amanda Pruden on the show. She's been on, I think, 3 times talking about different business strategies. Always great having her on. Yahel Demeter is another one who has come on the show 3 times just within the last year because we just met a year ago. And I enjoy the conversations I've had with him, especially the last one where Yahel interviewed me. That was so much fun. I've always wanted to flip the mic like that. Speaking of flipping the mic, another guest I really enjoyed talking with was Lauren Gaggioli on SEO. We just had so much in common. It was like talking with an old friend. And I was on her show as well. So many great guests. I'm not even scratching the surface. Andrei Minkov is another guest who's appeared multiple times and always brings so much value and so much fun. I don't know where we're at. Are we on 7? Are we on 10? Are we on 25? I don't know. But those are some of my top moments that I remember from the show. I think those are some of my favorites. I don't know what else. I don't know what else to share reflecting over the past. I don't know if any of you have listened all the way back to some of the early episodes, but there are some really bad ones, by the way. If you want to hear a terrible guest interview, go back to the beginning. That's no heat on the guests at all. They were fantastic. I just didn't know what I was doing. I think that's another thing that I've learned throughout this is you've got to be comfortable being a beginner. You know, I didn't know what I was doing so many times, but I just tried and figured it out. So if you have made it this far, I just want to say again, thank you. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for listening. Thank you for choosing growth. You've made this podcast what it is, and I do not take that for granted. If this episode has resonated with you in any way, can you let me know? That would be the best 10-year birthday gift you could give me is just let me know. Share the episode, post it to your stories, tag me, and I will tag you back. Or share it with another entrepreneur who's maybe in the same kind of reflective season. And if you haven't already, please take a second to leave a review. It helps others to find the show and helps me to also know what's landing with you. So here is to 10 years of mindset, motivation, and growth, and to whatever comes next for us. I will be back again soon. Thank you so much for being here. Bye for now, my friends.